Welcome back to AM Prime. Thanks for staying with us. Now, since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a number of lockdowns and regulations that has restricted the social interaction we all are used to as having part of being part of our daily lives. During this time, there's been a rise in mental health issues as well as cases of reported abuse throughout Trinidad and Tobago. With us this morning is Kelly McFarlane, who is a clinical and organizational psychologist at New Leaf Counseling and Management Consultancy Limited. Now, Ms. McFarlane possesses an MSc in clinical psychology focused in group, family, and individual treatment of depression and relationship counseling. Welcome to the show, Kelly, and a hearty AM Prime good morning.
Good morning to you as well.
So
thank you for having me.
Excellent, my pleasure. We are talking here mental health and family conflict, and I have addressed to some degree that issue in previous interviews on this show. But just to kind of tee up things, now I do understand that during this pandemic, many persons are now forced, so to say, to be at home. You are realizing how frustrating it is. You are disliking your spouse, you are disliking your children because they are annoying you, and you're now realizing just how frustrating they can be. So many people are going through those emotions. And some people are questioning, should I feel bad or should I feel guilty for having these emotions? What do you say to such individuals?
Well, what I would say is that they're not alone, that many people are experiencing that sort of fatigue and frustration. We're kind of thrust into, or we were rather thrust into this sudden new way of living and all of these changes all at once. So it's change on its own for humans, it can be challenging enough. Our brains love predictability because it's what makes us feel safe. If we know what's going to happen, we know how to protect ourselves. So change can feel like a threat. When you have several changes happening at once, you can imagine how that could kind of, really feel threatening and create a lot of anxiety. So I'd say that it is, you're not the only one that's experiencing it. Whether you should feel guilty about it would come down to your own values, the value system. But I mean, it's understandable to feel guilty about not liking your kids. I know for a moment, but it's kind of part and parcel of what we're going through.
Yeah. Aside from that aspect of having these relationship clashes, where interrelationship, where you have those individuals who are partners and parents and children and so forth. What do you see as some other triggers that people may be interacting with that may cause them some discomfort during this state of emergency or this lockdown that we are experiencing?
Certainly, financial issues, that fear of not knowing where your basic needs are going to come from. If we look at at Maslow's pyramid of our basic needs, that come one, you have to fulfill the most basic need before you get to the top. And things like where you live, having a roof over your head, something to eat, clothing, love, all of these things come before actually self-actualizing or feeling safe, feeling happy. And right now, a lot of people, because of the loss of finances, don't know if they'd be able to feed their children, feed themselves, pay their rent. So that is a certain cause of anxiety and stress for a lot of people. We know that since the pandemic started and with the sort of lockdown measures, things like domestic violence have increased, child abuse has increased, unfortunately. So for a lot of people, home is not a very safe or comfortable place to be. And now we're not only there for a couple hours a day, or for a couple hours a day outside of school or work, but we're there all day with the people that may be triggering us or upsetting us or a danger to us. So those are two very major elements. Another thing is, loneliness. A lot of people are experiencing loneliness and fear and sort of hopelessness around when will I get to experience meeting people and getting my life on, meeting my timelines, when, because, there's so much uncertainty. We think we're over it and then it's back again, and the loneliness feels bigger than before because now I can't see an end in sight, and I can't even hang out with friends or go to somewhere and sit and people watch. I can't do any of those things. So loneliness is becoming another really big factor that's leading to mental health issues. And then finally, before this happened, there were people who had underlying issues, underlying struggles with anxiety, underlying struggles with depression and other things. And the experiences that we've been having as a result of the lockdown, or not, when I say the lockdown, I don't just mean, the SOE, but as a result of the pandemic and having to sort of restrict things, has been really compounding some mental health issues for people, things that, a lot of people dealt with by hanging out with people, maybe taking a drink, even though that's not the best way to deal with mental health issues. But a lot of these things that people used to cope, we don't have that anymore. And so, the things that they kind of could have, buried or kind of just gone on with it. And, it's really starting to stand out for them. And it's showing up a lot more, and it's harder to cope with and harder to ignore.
Yeah, I want to delve into some of those things, and also what are some of the potential solutions that persons can be implemented during this period. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have more with Kelly McFarlane, who is a clinical and organizational psychologist. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back to AM Prime. We're continuing the conversation with Kelly McFarlane, who is a clinical and organizational psychologist with New Leaf Counseling and Management Consultancy Limited. And before the break, we were discussing a number of things that more or less people are experiencing during this time when it comes to some of the triggers, some of the challenges that people are experiencing. But one of the things that is extremely important, I would imagine, is being able to identify that you are in fact experiencing a problem, or those who you are sharing a household with are going through something, being able to pick up on that and do something about it. So how do we then identify what are some of the signs that we have to look out for that should cause us to have some concern?
Okay, so you could think about it in just first of all in two ways. One, how you feel, and two, what messages or feedback you're getting from people outside of you, so family members, co-workers, and so on. When we talk about mental health challenges, we look at the emotional, so how you feel. We look at the behavioral, how your behaviors have changed. We look at the physiological. Now we know that the mind and the body are very connected. So when something's affecting your mind, it comes out in your body a lot of times. So you get unexplained pain, indigestion, headaches, tummy pain, shoulders, neck, quite often. And then we look at the cognitive. That's just how your thoughts are affected. So have you started feeling like it's difficult to concentrate and focus? You're worrying a lot, overthinking, feeling a lot of excessive guilt. And so those are some of the cognitive symptoms. Behaviorally, Are you isolating a lot, losing interest in things that you were normally interested in, snapping at people, having lots of fights with others? That starts to tell us that, something isn't going well. Something is troubling you. Also, you can see it in your sleep patterns. Is it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep? You get up often and then you can't get back to sleep. You're eating, your appetite, have you lost appetite, gained appetite, eating too much or too little? Feel a lot more irritability, anger, frustration, burnout. All of these things, can start to cue you in that, okay, maybe it's time to talk to somebody to get a handle on this so that it doesn't have a handle on you instead.
Yeah. And well, talking to someone is so very important. And then sometimes we may be the individual that someone wants to speak to, because yes, there is that professional help and that's one aspect of it. But how are we able to have a conversation on one end with someone to say, listen, I've noticed something and I think that you should get help, or to start that whole process of inquiring? How can we prepare ourselves to have those kinds of conversations with friends and family?
Well, I mean, my first bit of advice would be, it's better or easier when you have a relationship with a person. If you are going to tell somebody, hey, I've noticed something that's unusual about you, or I think, you're experiencing a mental health challenge, and you don't have a relationship with them, or they don't have a relationship with you, they don't really know you. A lot of times people might just reject that. So develop the relationship, make it non-threatening. Telling people things about themselves can feel quite threatening and people react. So your aim is not to have the person react, but to be able to have the person to listen and receive. Sure. So if you do have a relationship with the person, talk in a calm manner and have examples. You're talking based on what you've realized, and you want to have as non-judgmental a tone as possible and be as supportive as possible. So yeah, I've noticed, just as you said, which was pretty good, and I've noticed X, Y, and Z. And I just wonder if you've been coping okay. So don't make any judgments. Don't make any diagnoses. Just say, ask questions. I've noticed X, and, what's been going on? How have you been feeling? And then let them take the lead with that. And then you can suggest, if you have some resources that you came to the conversation with, which is a good idea, then you can suggest, listen, if you do need somebody to talk to, I'm here, your dad is here, your mom is here, your sister, whoever, right? So I'm here. And if you don't want to talk to me, or you require something, a little more on the professional, or a little deeper, then here's somebody or somebody's that you can choose from. I've had a number of people that I've started seeing that it was their husband or their mother or their friend who told them, hey, I think you need to go, have a chat with a psychologist. Yeah. Quite a few people, so their friends would have known, or their loved ones would have known that they've been struggling, or they would have probably expressed that they've been struggling. And somebody eventually said, enough is enough. I'm going to get you organized, So yeah, just, non-judgmental, very supportive, have your resources, have a relationship with the person.
Going along those same lines, I want to have a discussion, because I know at New Leaf you all offer those online sessions where you can book an appointment and have those sessions. But before I get into that, one of the things that some people may be concerned with, and something that I've thought about, coming into this situation where you're locked down, you're experiencing those conflicts in the home, you're realizing in some cases that, I really don't like, or the relationship that I've had with this person, it's no longer the same, and I may want out, because not all relationships, I would imagine, are salvageable. And this may be a period where you just recognize, hey, we have grown apart and so forth. But some people are fearful of that, and they feel as though they must hold on and try to make it work for the children and this, that, and the other. But how do we have that conversation where we say to them, it's okay, this that we're experiencing, it's going to bring about changes in the family structure, in the relationships and stuff, and it's kind of okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of acceptance and managing your expectations, right? The thing about this period that we're experiencing and the family is that issues that weren't resolved, or patterns, dynamics that weren't very healthy. But again, just like the internal, your own personal anxiety and so on, we were able to not attend to it because we weren't as home or in each other's faces as much. So we had that time at work or with friends, and we didn't have to care about what the other person was doing or saying. We don't have that anymore. And so those things come to the surface now by force, and you have to deal with it at a much more intense level. And so as it starts to emerge more, it's not that it's necessarily new, but it's becoming more apparent and it's becoming worse. So things like poor communication, the way we speak to each other, or if we speak to each other at all, respect levels, stonewalling, different behaviors that create these breakdowns in emotional connection. Those things just start to not necessarily emerge, but start to show themselves a lot more. And that might be why, you're having this kind of more acute experience in your family. But as you said, quite a few people are experiencing that change, so to speak, or that sort of evolution in their relationship. And whether or not it survives, I mean, I always say, if you want something to work, you really have to work. And a lot of times, if you're stubborn about things, or you don't want to put in the effort, or you don't want to, then sometimes it becomes a lot harder to make things work. Even if a marriage, let's say, is dissolved, at very least, a lot of times you want to at least have some sort of an amicable friendship or relationship, just at least for the sake of the kids, and so a lot of times it really depends on not letting these things fester for too long. Because then all sorts of other things start to emerge from it, and you take a molehill and a mountain is made.
Gotcha. And again, before I jump into that other question, something that I just thought about, many people may be experiencing trauma as well with their new work arrangements. Some people are forced to work at home, and it's really a kind of stressful environment for them. Do you have any tips or solutions to help make that environment more conducive to them being able to be productive and so forth?
Definitely. I think a major one is structure. That's one that I always go back to. Our brains are pattern seeking and pattern forming, and our brains love structure and predictability. So, have a structure, just like when you have your regular work days where you can go out and work. You get up at a particular time, you have your breakfast, you talk to whoever you talk to on the phone, you commute, you get to work. So all the different sort of parts of your day that you engage in while things are normal, still try to do that, maybe put on some work clothes, have a good healthy breakfast. Another thing is our lifestyle choices. So how we eat, sleep, and exercise. Those three things, I think a lot of people underestimate how powerful and important the way we take care of our bodies with those three things is, because that prepares your body and your mind to handle the challenges that the day brings. You can't control whether the day brings challenges or what types of challenges the day brings. But if you keep your body and your mind in prime condition to deal with it when, not if, but when it comes, at least that kind of gives you a fighting chance at protecting your mental well-being.
Gotcha.
So get your regular 7 to 8 hours. Make sure you have a good, healthy diet and you're eating on time. You're actually eating. And so you rest and do some level of exercise. If it's like a spin bike or run around in your backyard, or get on YouTube and do some of those exercises they have with the push-ups and so on, just to keep yourself active and your brain active.
Gotcha. Now, coming to the question, we are living in a time right now where there is a huge thrust toward online engagement and digital engagement and so forth. And we understand that you all offer New Leaf online counseling services or sessions, so to say. Could you tell me a bit more about that? And was this something that you all offered prior to the pandemic, or it came as a result of the pandemic?
Yes, web therapy was for me was offered from inception back in 2016. So I've always seen web therapy as something that helps you reach more people easier, because some people, they may not want to commute, or they may not be able to because they have kids at home, but they want to make the time to see about themselves, see about their mental health. So it was offered prior, and it continues to be offered now. And what it does, it allows you to access psychotherapy from wherever, whether it's at home, at a friend's house, at the office. It allows you to be able to have just as like this, on camera, because it is important for us to see clients as we chat with them. So it allows for that convenience then. With regard to accessing the service.
And have you seen a rise during this period in persons accessing those services?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's undeniable.
Sure. Yeah. So now let's just shift over to what happens after the pandemic, or how do we prepare ourselves? Because we now have to go back out and socialize. It may be in a different way, but how do we prepare ourselves mentally for that? Because some people may be thinking, this thing has no end in sight. I'm going to be home for much longer. Some people are preparing themselves for an emergence in 2023 or 2024. They're thinking that Carnival is happening way down then, and that for some people, Carnival and partaking in these social interactions are a huge deal for them. How do we still, while we are in the midst of this, still look to the end and prepare ourselves for that emergence?
Well, when we think of preparing ourselves for that, that's preparing ourselves for something good. On a mental, on an emotional level, it's saying, hey, something great is coming, and I'm excited, I'm happy for that. The thing is that, unfortunately, what I find, well, of course, in my line of work, what I find is a lot of people don't see that light at the end of the tunnel, and that's when we have a bigger issue. That's when people feel a loss of hope and feel really just in despair that this is life and what do we do, and that's where a lot of the anxiety and the depression emerges. So I would like people to think or to believe or to know that there is an end in sight. But on the same level, I also always advocate for there's some things that we can control and there are some things that we can't control. And finding, a way to say, well, okay, if the uncontrollable happens, then what do I do? How terrible would it be? What resources are available to me? Human resources and tangible resources. And, how do I continue to live in this way? How do I continue to thrive? How do I pivot? And if the things that I do want, happen, well, great. So it's like we prepare for the worst and we hope for the best.
Yes.
And then focus on the things that we can control, things like how we think about things, how we feel about things, what we do about things, how active we get, how we help others, support others, how we make ourselves feel good, where our self-care comes from. So just on a psychological level, I'd say that would be, a way to sort of prepare for the uncertain future that exists. And sometimes, this is a time, and we can look at it this way as well. A lot of times, again, it's your perspective, it's the way you choose to look at things. But we can look at this as a time to build resilience. This is a time that we say, hey, you know what? Resilience is extremely important in life to us, to our children, to our loved ones. This is the time that we teach each other, okay, this is how we practice bouncing back from adversity. Because, life is not a smooth, super predictable, perfect run. There's always some bit of unpredictability. There's always something that could be coming around the corner. But a lot of times when the anxiety is highest or the depression is highest is when, there's this feeling that I can't cope. What do I do if this tendency to ruminate and worry and feel guilty about things that have nothing to do with us or that cannot do anything about or control, and that takes us away from focusing on a plan, from helping ourselves feel better, from helping people around us, our children, etc., feel better. So, it's good to say, well, okay, in preparing for what might come, I accept that I don't know what might come, but if I take the red pill or the blue pill, that's a matrix metaphor.
Yes,
but
yes.
if we go this way or that way, with the future, I prepare in this way for X future, and I prepare in that way for Y future, and let it go. That's another key. Let it go. Don't. So I always tell people, it's okay to think about, what if this happens, but you plan for it, you figure it out, and then you leave it alone. You don't stay there, and that's when things get bad. It's when we stay in the what if.
Yes. Now, before I let you go, because I've tried to squeeze as much out of this interview as possible, this discussion, there are those who may have the belief that counseling, therapy, things of this nature may not be for them because it's usually for the elite, for people who have money, for people who have bigger and deeper problems. But how would you put across these services, counseling, therapy, and so forth, as being something for everyone, or something that everyone kind of has access to or should have access to?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, you said it. It is for everyone. It's an act of self-care a lot of the times. It's sometimes people go to counseling just to say, well, okay, I wonder, about some of my behaviors. I wonder about some of my interpersonal stuff. I wonder about how some of my past might have affected my present. I just want to do some self-exploration. I want to understand myself and my motivations better. I want to learn how to cope with stress. I want to learn how to cope with anxiety. People go to therapy for a range of things. You don't, not only for clinical issues or illnesses, and it can only make you better or more in tune with your inner self. And it's very important to be more in tune with your inner self, because then you feel more in control.
Yes.
You feel more in control in your social interactions. You feel more in control in your occupational pursuits or your educational pursuits, and in your interpersonal intrapersonal and quiet moments. You feel more at ease and at peace. And for a lot of people, being able to feel that way or do that is extremely valuable.
Yes. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let me just say thank you so much for shedding so much light as you've done this morning, really presenting counseling and therapy as, again, something that everyone should have access to and can have access to, and really breaking down a lot of the issues that people may be experiencing, because I would imagine that some of our viewers may be looking on right now and saying, hey, I can relate to this and I can relate to that, and you may have very well helped a lot of persons. So you would have had your online therapy sessions and you have your television therapy sessions in a sense.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Nice. And that was clinical psychologist at the New Leaf Counseling and Management Consultancy Limited, Kelly McFarling.